So we have an article here from CNN. This is from about a week, just roughly about a week ago, and it talks about all the about a problem that continues to persist with the DNC, and it's the DNC's fundraising woes. According to this piece, the title, which is titled "DNC's Fundraising Woes Continue with Worst October in 15 Years." Now, it was the same situation last month, so September as well, if I remember correctly. September, they had very bad fundraising numbers as well. Those were low, and apparently these ones are even lower than. So this October one is even lower than the September one. So it's just getting worse and worse and worse. It's just in a nosedive right now. So I'm gonna read you a piece, some parts of this piece, which is very interesting. So. Starts out with the Democratic National Committee's fundraising woes continued last month when the party posted its lowest total for the month of October in at least 15 years. The DNC raised $3.9 million in October, far short of the $9.2 million raised during the month by the Republican National Committee. So that's nearly three times more that the Republicans have raised than Democrats. The RNC has now raised $113.2 million over the 2017 calendar year, and has $42.5 million in the bank and no debt. The DNC, meanwhile, has raised $55 million this year. It has $5 million in cash on hand and owes $3.2 million in debt. So that's pretty horrible. Those numbers do not look good. It was the worst October for Democrats dating back to 2003. It says the first year the national parties were required to file monthly finance reports. So that was 2003. That was the first month that they were filing their finance reports. It says the low totals reflect the difficulty that the DNC has had raising money since former President Barack Obama left office. It says the Democratic fundraising struggles came in the month before the party notched its biggest victory since President Donald Trump took office, easily winning the governor's race in Virginia and New Jersey, and picking up state legislative seats around the country. Other Democratic organizations, including the party's House and Senate campaign arms, have broken their own fundraising records, particularly with online small dollar donors. But the DNC under new chairman Thomas Perez has remained a source of friction, with Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders' backers, including Our Revolution, the political organization that grew out of his 2016 campaign, remaining critical of its role. Then it talks about how Donna Brazile came out with her book and tipping the scales in favor of Hillary, rigging the primary, and so on and so forth. Talking about the Unity Commission. Okay, so there's not really much to say here. I mean, in the sense, the article pretty much says it all. As far as what I think on this matter, I think it's pretty obvious. The DNC is in complete shambles now. One point that the article did mention there is that the House and Senate organizations that are so the DNC's the Democrats' House and Senate organizations that are raising money, those are doing fine. So when it comes to House and Senate seats, those are fine. But I guess it just shows that nobody really trusts the Democrats as far as the party, the Democratic National Committee. And when you have, but that's the thing. That's obviously, it's obviously good that the Senate, so the Senate and House, whatever apparatuses are doing well. That's a good thing. At least it's not, all throughout. But as far as how the Democratic Party is doing, that's where all the money comes from. That's where all the money is, distributed out to the different states. So and then the state parties themselves have money, but they get their money from the national DNC, the main DNC chambers, essentially. And the fact that it's doing so bad, that's really bad news. Like, it should be panic time for these people at this point. And the fact that they can't seem to be reversing any of their fortunes, even with Donald Trump in office, even with how badly he's doing. I mean, with such a horrible president, currently in office right now, with his approvals being, I think, in the low 30s, I believe it's like 31 or 32. I mean, Democrats are not much better. That's the problem. Democrats, Hillary Clinton, so the last person to run for president on the Democratic side, she's around the same point as he is. I think she's actually even lower than Trump is. And the Democrats are around that same point too. So, but that shouldn't even be the case. You should be doubling him. You should be tripling him. Maybe not tripling, but you should definitely be doubling him. Like, if you're not 10 or 20 points ahead of Trump as it is as a party, so you're not ahead of the current president in office, let alone the party's apparatus, that party's apparatus, so the RNC. If you're not ahead of them, then you got some serious issues. I mean, you need to be, Thomas Perez. I don't even, when the announcement was made for Thomas Perez to become the head of the DNC, I never really understood it. I think they honestly, and it was Obama. It was President Obama who thought of that idea. He was the one who came up with that idea. And honestly, I think he just pulled it out of his ass. I don't think he really thought that one through. And he was just like, oh yeah, Thomas Perez, I know him really well Thomas Perez was the labor secretary under President Obama for, I think, the entire 8 years. At least for 4 years. Certainly at least for one term. And he was the labor secretary for Obama. So to Obama, in Obama's mind, he's thinking, well, I might as well add the person that I know the best, the person that I know really well. He was in my administration. He, did a really good job with labor secretary, which is, by the way, completely different than what you're doing for the DNC. I mean, I just don't think that Thomas Perez was ready. I don't think he was prepared for this job, but he kind of just took it as a favor to Obama. And that's why I heard, and as many people have heard, that Thomas Perez is actually, he's working, I think, as a professor. He's working as a professor at some university. I forgot what the university is called. I didn't really pay attention to that news and at the moment it happened, but I do remember it coming out. I was just like, I just thought it was hilarious. And I wasn't very surprised by it. It was just kind of like, all right, well, this is what you would expect. Basically, what the DNC gets now is a part-time employee, is a part-time, chair of the Democratic Party. I mean, and this is fresh off of, Donna Brazile being the interim chair. Before that, it being Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was a terrible chairman. She also was kind of like a part-timer because she was also in Congress. The best chair that the Democrats had in a while was Howard Dean. Howard Dean was a former progressive back in the day, and he came up with the 50-state strategy, and that's what won a lot of the seats in 2000. Certainly in 2006, leading up to 2008, and that's when Obama took over. So, and then obviously, he was still in there in 2012 as well. Or maybe he wasn't there in 2012. I don't know, but he was definitely there for for all the success the Democrats have. Now, Howard Dean, for those of you who don't know, Howard Dean is a complete sellout. He's not anybody that that any progressive should take seriously. He's basically a corporate tool now, and he's given in to a lot of the demands of the corporate donors, and he's doing what they say. So he's basically their errand boy now. I think he works for some lobbyist group or somewhere in Washington, which is not surprising because that's what a lot of the politicians who, even if they're not politicians, but a lot of the politicians, after they're done, they go and work, in Washington and basically make bank out of those jobs. Howard Dean is a former governor of Vermont, ironically, Bernie Sanders' state. And he does not like Bernie Sanders for some reason. I don't know what his problem is. I think he thinks Bernie Sanders was responsible for Trump winning, which, is not surprising coming from the establishment. And that's why he is a member of the establishment. So, yeah, I mean, the whole thing with the party, Howard Dean and stuff, you know, Thomas Perez, all these Democratic leaders, I guess if you call it, in this case they are leaders. All of them turn out to be fucking wackos. None of them you can take seriously. They're all absolute clowns. And you know, Thomas Perez, not even a year into being the chair of the party, and he's already a fucking joke. You know, he's already a part-timer. He's not even a full-time chair of the party. If it was up to a lot of us, a lot of progressives out there, we would have preferred Keith Ellison. Keith Ellison was a very good choice. There was even another progressive who I think had run into the Green Party, I think, before, and his name was Samuel Ronan. He was also a very good guy. Nina Turner would have been very good. Tulsi Gabbard was the former vice chair of the Democratic National Party. She resigned because she wasn't happy with how the primary was being rigged in favor of Hillary against Bernie. So she got out of there as soon as she discovered all that stuff. And then when she got out of there, she essentially went and backed Bernie. And yeah, so I mean, a lot of this stuff is just kind of like, it's just like the party is just, it's falling apart. It's like a house of cards, you know. And when you are relying on corporate donors all the time, you know, you're essentially a house of cards. That's what you are, you know. You're like, you can't be taken seriously. You can't be no donor, no even voter can really take you seriously and be like, oh yeah, this is a party I really want to get behind. Like, imagine donating your money to the Democratic Party. Like, it would be a joke, because I mean, you would just be like, okay, well, I can't have any confidence in what this party is doing, what these candidates that they bring up are doing. I mean, they're all bums, and they're all, you know, they're not doing anything. I mean, they're all failures. We just lost, the worst race, you know, the biggest layup election ever in a race that we should have easily won against a buffoon like Donald Trump, and you know, a reality TV host like Donald Trump, and if we can't even beat that guy, I mean, how is anybody supposed to have confidence in beating the next? So winning Donald Trump when he runs for re-election, or assuming he gets to his re-election and he's not impeached. But assuming you are supposed to face him, okay, so you face Mike Pence. I don't know, whatever. You know, so that's another story for another day. The point is, Democrats are fucking horrible right now, and they're falling all over themselves, tripping up all over themselves. They have no idea what direction they're going in. The only institutions, or whatever it is, whatever you want to call them, on the left that are doing well are groups like Justice Democrats, Brand New Congress, Our Revolution, you know, all these groups, progressive, real progressive groups, Democratic Socialists of America, you know, you could even throw the Green Party in there. Those are the real groups that are getting somewhere, while the rest of them are just like, the rest of the Democrats and stuff, like, you can't even take seriously anymore. So, you know, good luck with them. Good luck to them, because they need it.